Hey everyone, I'm sure you're all well aware of the Covington Catholic schoolboys controversy that's been propagated through all the established media and even by those in the alternative media. I mean, everybody's been talking about this story. It was definitely trending. I mean, it's been going on for a week now, but it was at least quieted down because most of the established media, those who propagate this story initially, have had to backtrack tremendously. They've had to issue corrections, apologies, and statements saying, yeah, sorry, we got this one wrong. Yeah, we actually were fake news, right? They did use that emotion rather than their objective brain, or at least understand or remember, oh, I'm supposed to be a journalist. Yeah, let me get the other side of the story first. Like I say, they're all having to backtrack and acknowledge the fact that they completely misrepresented this story almost entirely. And I mean, think about the detriment that this is having and the havoc that it's playing on these young boys, especially the one that was predominantly framed in the first original video, that first short video that did not actually take into account the full story. I mean, think about that young man. I mean, they've doxed him. I mean, he's had death threats. They suggest he shouldn't be allowed to even go to the school, or that school, people have even suggested, like I say, these are people, these are just outrageous morons. These are people, blue check mark people on Twitter or those in the established media, like big, huge organizations that have a massive amount of influence over millions of people, right? Basically use that mob mentality and that pitchfork mentality to send out their minions to inflict as much harm on this young man or his cohorts in that group as they could. And these are just 16-year-old boys, right? These are people that they were bused to this place in Washington, you know, there where they do all the protesting, and that's what happens, right? It's not like this is anything that is outside the norm. This is something that goes on year after year, actually, for these kids, right? But I mean, actually, that's a place where a lot of people go to protest. That's why what were those Black Israelites or whatever that other group. I mean, you know, I'm sure once again, you've seen, I'm not even going to worry about covering the original topic or the original video or the secondary video, the long form part of that video where it showed, yeah, it was these black dudes that were the ones, these Black Israelites or whatever, were the ones that were actually being bombastic, racist, and homophobic, and all those, you know, those insinuations or accusations that were thrown at these boys. But it was that Black Israelites group that was actually the ones that was issuing and throwing a lot of insults, and not just these boys, but even the First Nations people. And the First Nations people, even some of them, as like I said, if you've paid attention to the videos and listened to it, they were even saying to those white boys, they don't deserve to be there. Hey, go back to Europe, or all this. Just the racism, like I say, it was coming from the First Nations group, some of them in it, not all of them, and those that Black Israelites group. The young boys were just standing there doing their thing. And I mean, like I say, if you paid attention to the video, you know exactly the true story. So like I say, most media outlets at this point have chose to back off, and hopefully when the smoke all clears, they're going to look out and like, are we still a viable outlet? Are people still going to trust us? They're all a little bit worried about the fact that, yes, their fake news was caught in a situation and propagated to a point where it was trending. So they feel the retaliation. They feel the backlash. CBC, though, once again, the Canadian Crown Crony Corporation that has that forced income and wealth redistribution as its business model, where they don't have to worry about whether they're viable or whether people respect their opinions or their narratives. Like I said, when they can double down on their kind of insanity without feeling any financial repercussions, and because they're basically a quasi-arm of the government where they don't even have to suffer any social implications or repercussions, this is what you get. They're doubling down on it, folks. This is an opinion piece submitted to the CBC News. Headline, Teenage Boys Should Not Be Bused to a Debate About Women's Reproductive Rights. Analysis of the Covington standoff seemed to ignore one question. What were those boys doing there anyway? This is being reported by Mary Rogan, January 31st, 2019. So I mean, think about it. The headline of this opinion piece that CBC feels more than comfortable with putting out there, like I say, much later after the fact, but CBC feels more than comfortable to allow this kind of opinion piece to propagate their media outlet. And you know why. But to even suggest that teenage boys should not be bused to a debate about women's reproductive... Hello, do women get pregnant on their own? I mean, could someone please show me any example where women can just go out and get this miraculous conception where they just, what do they do? Blink their eyes, shake their head 2 or 3 times and snap their fingers and boom, they're pregnant. No, it takes 2 to tango, and it still requires the XY and the XX chromosomes, which means a man and a woman have to come together to procreate or to create or propagate the species. So why are these boys, right, should have no right or say in the fact that they are a part and parcel in these abortion debates or discussions, that they're actually involved with them? But once again, basically the people on the left are saying that, yeah, even though you're actively involved, and if the woman chooses to have a kid, that you're going to be on the hook for at least 18 years to take care of them financially at the minimum, right? Or if the woman chooses to end the pregnancy or have an abortion, well, this is a person that, once again, isn't going to have the ability to propagate his family line or genealogy. So, but they're saying that you should have no say in that whatsoever because you're a man or a boy. Oh, it's a woman's thing. It's a woman's right, huh? Well, like I say, when the day comes where women can get pregnant on their own without using male sperm at all, then, like I say, if we ever get to that point, then yeah, I guess we won't have to worry about it. But we're not there yet, are we? So yes, men and boys still need to be concerned about these kind of issues. And yes, they have a right, an inherent right, to voice their opposition vocally if they need be, and definitely to at least go stand and protest. The fact that Mary doesn't seem willing to acknowledge and accept that fact tells you she kind of has an authoritarian mindset on her own, doesn't she? The bizarre interaction between Indigenous elder Nathan Phillips and Catholic schoolboy Nick Sandmann outside the Lincoln Memorial earlier this month was destined to go viral. It had everything. Was the kid smiling or smirking? Was his classmates jeering or cheering Phillips' stoic drumming? And what about the Make America Great Again hats the boys were wearing? But there was one aspect. Well, actually, before I continue on, no, that's only for people that care about sensationalized tabloid-style reporting in media. And I get it. I get it, Mary. I've noticed that when I've gone to the grocery store or even grown up, that it does seem to be a lot of people from the feminine perspective or the feminine sway or that identify as feminine that do seem to enjoy those kind of sensationalized tabloid-style outlets or forms of reporting. But not so much for a whole other side of the equation when you're talking about gender in particular. And like I said, we can break that down and say that there are some men that like sensationalized tabloid style reporting, and I'll agree with you there. But once again, this is the problem with collectivizing entire groups, is it leaves no room for nuance or the exception to the rule or the minority. Once again, why the respect and adherence to individual rights and freedoms is what matters most. Then you don't have to worry about this kind of collectivism or groupthink or group guilt. But there was one aspect that was largely overlooked. The scene between Phillips and Sandmann took place because the teen and his classmates were in Washington for the March for Life, an anti-abortion rally that has brought tens of thousands of marchers to the National Mall in Washington, D.C. every year since 1974. That includes busloads of Catholic students from all over America. So as we're seeing, it's got a lot of precedent, 40 plus years of precedent. So how come we're not hearing how this was considered outrageous, abhorrent, or something that shouldn't be allowed before, right? You weren't. And the reason why this is even coming out, the reason why Mary's presenting this, because once again, they're trying to double down on their kind of bullshit political narrative and hoping that it'll stick somehow. Yeah, it's not going to work, Mary. This isn't just an American thing. In Canada, the March for Life takes place on Parliament Hill every May and draws crowds upwards of 25,000 people. That bothers you, doesn't it, Mary? Bothers you a lot, doesn't it? In 2014, over 500 students from publicly funded Catholic high schools in Ontario attended the rally with a portion of transportation fees covered by Catholic district school boards. Are you pretending, Mary, that you're now worried and concerned about the money that might be going to busing these Catholic students to protest? Now you're trying to make that public purse economic argument, are you, Mary? Really? Last year, students from Catholic high schools in Red Deer, Alberta attended the March for Life in Edmonton, also with publicly funded school board money. At least one Catholic school board in Ontario has been allowing students to count participation in anti-abortion rallies toward their 40 hours of community service needed to graduate. Well, first of all, why would these students even need 40 hours of community service? Why do they need to be slaves for 40 hours to have unpaid work, right? Why are you advocating? First of all, hey, Mary, let's all agree that none of our students should be forced to work for free for 40 hours as a means to graduate. Can we agree there? I bet you Mary wouldn't agree with me even on that. So she seems completely fine with using the proceeds of slavery for whatever initiative that she might agree with. But no, if it pertains to these young students here, use that as a means to supplement their slavery, but under a guise where maybe they're doing something that's more conducive or aligned with their preconceived notions or mentality, psychology, or morality. Oh no, that's somehow bad, right, Mary? Anyways, I'm not going to read any more of this article. I'll post a link to it in the description of the video below. But come on, folks. Like, this is another perfect example. And like I say, very few media outlets, and even some of the worst ones, right? You know, like the New York Times and the Washington Post. I mean, we all know the typical ones, right? I mean, it's so easy these days to point to, and they even acknowledge themselves, right? I mean, really, not only does the emperor have no clothes, but the media have no clothes. I mean, it's so blatantly obvious these days that it's just political diatribe, rhetoric, and narratives, whether it comes from the left, predominantly like most of the established media, or things like Fox News that predominantly is right-leaning. You're not getting any true objectivism. There's at least one thing we should all take away from this is there's no such thing as unbiased or genuinely objective reporting anymore, folks. No one wants to hold themselves to that kind of standard. Well, I mean, actually, I shouldn't say no such thing. There are very, very, very tiny segments, maybe, or individual actors, but once again, they're overwhelmed. They're the needle in the haystack, right? So what we're getting, though, is that the predominance, the overwhelming majority of the voices that are your opinion makers or thought leaders, they're all about identity politics and using arbitrary things such as the color of your skin, your gender, your religious background, your race, your heritage. They're using all those arbitrary factors to determine who you are as a person. So like I say, these are the people that are the true racists, the true sexists, and the ones that are truly divisive and causing the most harm in society. It's a shame that people like myself even have to go through all this effort to help push back and battle against this kind of political diatribe and these kind of baseless premises and narrative that is, like I say, it's only meant to do one thing, and that's divide up the masses so they're constantly battling each other. Me, I'm all about, hey, let's hold these people to account. Let's not fight each other all the time, right? Let's not let these authoritarian hacks and these opinion makers or these thought leaders keep us constantly battling each other while they're getting away with doing whatever the hell they want. How about we at least start pivoting and focus on these people, the ones that are truly stirring the pot and creating genuine division? Because until that happens, like I say, not only are you being counterproductive, you're actually just lending fodder for these people to use against you. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.